Though there certainly is plenty of good in the world, when I think about society in general, modern society, it feels like overall it promotes evil. And maybe it's not society itself, but um, media, internet, television, music. A lot of it promotes evil. It seems like in modern society, it's somewhat, or in some cases, very much taboo to speak about God or to claim that you believe in God or anything like that, anything related to that. I know people, even family members, who, if they hear the word God, they roll their eyes. And they might not say this explicitly, but I feel the tone of what they're saying. And maybe in some cases, people do kind of specifically say something very much like this. And what it is like they have this attitude, this bitter attitude about that word and about that concept and about the reality of God because in their personal life path, they started out as children that they were told stories or they read stories or they were just simply told by their parents what God is, and they were told that it was a man and it was he had a son named Jesus Christ, and it was a very specific story that they were told. And what they wanted was because they were just a kid, they didn't understand. And again, it was just a story, but they were told a story, they believed it. They probably thought, my parents wouldn't lie to me, so this has to be true. And then later, maybe a single moment passed or multiple moments, and they reached a breaking point where they were praying and they were asking for God to come and help. They were praying to that imaginary man that they were told was real. They were so I mean, from the start, their whole concept of God was based on a story. It had nothing to do with God. It was based on a story. So they had this concept of what God is. They're trying to communicate with it as if it's a man, as if it's a male being, and it is like people say. I mean, it's like their imaginary friend. And when their imaginary friend doesn't come and help them in that one critical moment, or maybe a series of moments, they grow bitter, and they turn their back on the entire relationship with God, the entire idea that there is a force of creation that we are always connected to and that is always with us and that is everywhere and always. And simply by hearing the word, you see their face, it's this bitter reaction. They roll their eyes and they think, it's almost as though what they're saying is, fuck him. He wasn't there for me when I needed him. And so their entire perspective on it is based on lies that they were either told or that they read from a book when they were a kid. And they're still, now they're adult people, but that bitter attitude is that of a child. It's still like a child or like a teenager, like a rebellious teenager. I've come across people that are quite old and they still act like it's almost cool. The the energy they're putting forth and what they're projecting out into the world, it looks like, is that they think it's cool to reject God. They think it's cool to turn their back on God. And in more extreme cases, to promote Satan. And to them, it seems like they're just playing with ideas. They're trying to upset and get reactions out of people who genuinely have a relationship with God. Um, it doesn't seem like they actually believe in Satan in these cases, in many cases. But in my view, whether they believe in it or not, whether it even is a real being or not, God or Satan, if we want to break things down that simply, whether it's actually real or not, by aligning oneself, by aligning yourself with one or the other, it has a very serious impact on everything that's going on inside of you, how you interact with others, and how you interface with the world as a whole. If you align yourself with the symbol of all that is evil and in opposition to what is good and creative and holy and sacred, if you align yourself with the opposite of that, that actually translates physically into your real life. And it, again, it doesn't need to be a real being. There doesn't need to be any actual physical reality or truth to any of those concepts or symbols. But the effect is the same. The effect is still had. The effect is still experienced on their life. I see it. I watch it. I see the misery and the suffering in those who have turned their back on God, God who is love. They don't believe in love. They don't believe in God. We are always in the presence of God. We are always part of God. It is everywhere. We are it at all times, forever. But in this space, it does seem like we do have that free will. We have the opportunity to put our blinders on and completely turn our back. And in a way, we're not truly disconnected, but we get to experience disconnection from that. And it's a choice. And I know those who have made the choice. I watch them, and it's not like they're absolutely miserable. They can laugh and joke. Some of them are very materially successful. And, it's just a pleasure seeking lifestyle. But everything is like hollow and unholy, if that makes sense. I know this could sound very strange because I'm not even myself a Christian person, and I'm using some of these words that seem very much related to that faith. But it disturbs me when I see that, when I see that reaction, somebody rolling their eyes, an adult person rolling their eyes when they simply hear the word God. And what I see in every example that I can imagine right now, the people that I actually know, they haven't, it doesn't seem like they have explored what that word could mean for them, or how to let that word exist in such a way that it doesn't cause you to roll your eyes and have a bitter reaction. It's just about, it's that initial idea that they had that turned out to be false. And instead of understanding that it was their own fault, or the fault of their parents for teaching them that, but it was just a fault in the way that they were trying to conceptualize God. It was very narrow and very specific and very limited and inaccurate to imagine that it is a man, a magical man, who essentially grants your wishes. And when their wishes weren't granted, they they gave up on that idea, not apparently not understanding that that's all it ever was an idea that wasn't really God. They were trying to connect with this idea, a lie that either was passed down to them or that they came across on their own. But it disturbs me that a person can't see that. And I'm not talking about a child, I'm talking about an adult whose response to all of this is just like that of a child. It's like when a child doesn't get their way and they whine. I wanted it. It's annoying and disturbing, and it bums me out to see that. And it's not even that I think it's really that specific thing. It is that specific thing because a person can simply not believe in any of this, not have a relationship, a conscious relationship with God, with the force that I'm using the word God to refer to. They, a person cannot have a relationship with that, and then that's cool. And there are people who that's the case. That's the case for them. It's all bullshit to them, but they can at the same time hear the word and not roll their eyes and not be all weird and bitter about it. That's another thing. That's a separate thing. What disturbs me is seeing the people who are holding on to this, I guess, some form of trauma from their childhood or adulthood, whenever the moment was when they realized that thing that they wanted to be real wasn't real. That thing that they were imagining, the thing that they created within their own mind, they learned that that wasn't real, and then they're holding on to this resentment and some type of trauma. They feel some kind of way about that, and they carry it tragically sometimes into their like late years. I've met older people who are like this, and there's like a lack of consciousness there. And I'm not Mr. Perfect Consciousness, know it all guru who's solved it all. It's just that it seems important. It seems important to life as a whole. Like I said, aligning oneself, whether it's true or not, aligning oneself with the concept or the symbol of serving God and relating to God and knowing God, or at the very least, trying to communicate or trying to merge with God or experiencing communion with God, whatever that word might actually mean. I'm trying to use the word in its truest sense, not in a biblical sense and not in a religious sense, but it's an English word that refers to a source of a being or the source of everything. That's what I feel. A being, a material, it's abstract to me, the word, because it can mean so many different things. But I'm not, when I use the word God, I'm not referring to the Bible. I'm not referring to Jesus Christ or any disciples or any commandments or any books. If anything, I guess one way I could attempt to describe it, but it is impossible to describe, it would be to say that I'm referring to the creative force in the universe or in all universes, the creative force, period. Love, period. Being, period. I would say life, but also death is a part of this whole thing. To me, God is everywhere and everything. But there are, I guess, different vibrations, different frequencies, because I feel the closest to God when I am surrounded by nature and I am away from man-made cities. When I'm in nature and I'm present and I'm breathing, that's when I feel close with God. Or should I say, in that environment, I find it easier to experience communion with God. And I understand that these concepts, thinking of these words, God or good or evil or Satan or anything that I've said in this video, these aren't necessary for anyone. I think it's because I grew up within the framework of religion. And so now I'm finding a way to use these words or something like that because I know that it's not necessary. There are people, more people that I know personally, who I am relatively certain, though I can never be 100% certain, it seems like they don't think about these words. They have no use for these words. They really do live like an atheistic lifestyle where, without verbalizing it, it appears as though they only believe in the flesh, the physical nature of life, physical life. It's all physical. Everything comes from the physical. There was nothing before and there will be nothing after. To them, it's all just, this is all like an accident and a coincidence, and it's just about the flesh. And there can be no morals. There can truly be no morals in that lifestyle. It's a dog eat dog world for these individuals. It's about power, money and power. And as far as romantic relationships, it doesn't look like there's too much commitment there. It's more about getting whatever you can out of other people, getting extracting pleasures from them, and more pleasures from other individuals behind their backs. And not everyone who lives an atheistic lifestyle is like that, but I know many personally who and I don't judge them for it. I'm just trying to speak about what I'm observing. They they don't really have it doesn't look like there's a moral code that they follow. There will be limits. They're not psychopaths, they're not sociopaths. There are limits for the average individual, but in general, they're not too concerned with morality. It's just about fun, 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 pleasure, power, money. There is no room for anything sacred. I think they view it as a weakness. I think they would view belief in God as a weakness. I'm not sure where that comes from, though it could come from what I mentioned earlier, maybe their own personal past experience of believing in this entity that they had created in their own mind, only to find out later that it never offered them any help, and now they're bitter. They feel bitter toward that entity of mind, of thought that they had created themselves, and so they see it as a weakness, I think. But I'm just imagining and like projecting. I don't really know. All I know is my own experience. But like how I started this video, it does seem like in the world that we live, or every place that I have gone, and increasingly throughout time, it's cooler to not believe in God. You're looked at as foolish if you believe in God. If you use the word, me saying the word, it's almost controversial in some uh in some ways, which is which is it boggles the mind. Like feeling what I feel, knowing what I know, it's really sad that this is the case, and it seems like it's getting worse as far as society goes and the things that are promoted by popular media and art even. It's that it's not cool. You're not cool if you use the word God. You're not cool if you believe in God. You're not cool if you speak about these things. Nobody is trying to hear it. And I'm not trying to preach anything either. I just am trying to express my thoughts on this topic. But it's more cool to be immoral. It's actually marketed as cool. Like you get clout for being immoral in today's society. And I don't know if I will ever really vibe with that. It is what it is. I know people like this, and I'm still cool with them. I might still love them. It's not like I don't feel like I'm at war with anyone. But again, it just bums me out. That's the way that I can put it. It's a bummer to know people that I love who are in this space, or who have put themselves in this space unknowingly, where they are effectively, though realistically they're not, but effectively they're disconnected from God. They're disconnected from love. They're disconnected from creation. And again, I'm not Mr. Perfect, Mr. Already got his whole life figured out and has solved all the mysteries of life. I have my own personal problems and struggles that I still deal with. But with the individuals that I have in mind, and I would never say their name, I would never call them out like that, even if there's a very low chance they even are aware of my YouTube channel. They have some pretty um there's some darkness going on, and it's a side effect of disconnecting yourself from creation, disconnecting yourself from love, disconnecting yourself from God. At any given moment, they can reconnect. It's going to hurt a little bit, probably. I've gone through this experience, and it involved reconnecting, involved pretty strong feelings of, I guess, guilt, and there was a large, powerful emotional release when I realized what I had done. It was like the moment that I reconnected, I realized that that whole time it was a choice, that I had just turned my back and ignored the sacred and lived my life as though it wasn't there, and as though it wasn't real, and as though this really was just this cold and empty realm void of any love. I have put myself in that place. I think initially, unconsciously, not knowing that I was doing that to myself. I was playing the role of victim maybe to various events or circumstances or whatever. Um, but yeah, all of this like promoting evil and satanic shit in society to me is not cool at all. It's not even a little bit cool. Unfortunately, it seems like that whole push, it really preys on teenagers, children as well, but teenagers, it's like as they're going through this, they're feeling awkward, they don't really fit in anywhere, they're changing, and at the same time they're rebellious. In that zone, in that time period is when a lot of individuals seem like they really get turned on to this evil is cool agenda. And it's some pretty sick shit what's actually going on. And you don't need to, people always want to argue or they talk about like conspiracy theories or prove this or prove that. The thing is, you don't need to research any conspiracy theories. You don't need to look up anything. You can actually just pay attention, sit back, be silent, and this I wouldn't actually recommend anyone do this, but watch the mainstream stuff. Pay attention to what's promoted in mainstream music or what's on television or the movies that are coming out. Pay close attention to all of it and what is being promoted. There's not too much good being promoted. Not too many things with a positive message. And sometimes it could be a film or let's say a song. Maybe a song is an easier example. There is a positive message, or in the sense that there's a feeling, it's got a good beat, and you feel like it gets your energy up. You feel like, yeah, this song gives me energy. This is cool. But then the lyrics are straight satanic. That can be a thing. And maybe that doesn't even matter, and none of this matters at all. But I feel like it does matter. Because if we isolate one thing like that, it's like, okay, it's one song, who cares? It's bullshit. Just listen to what you like. Listen to music that you like listening to and that makes you feel good. Cool. But when you look at everything, like all the art that's being promoted and the messages that are being promoted, just everything, we look at all of it and how morality is changing within society compared to, I guess, a more traditional society. It's like, especially when we look at history, it's a very slow, incremental process that happens so slowly we don't realize it because the older generation dies off and the next one has to deal with it. Even if you start to figure it out, the grand scheme of things as you're getting older, you're just gonna die. It's too late to make any changes. And then it's just little by little by little, step by step, as the generations slowly go by, everything is getting worse and worse and worse. More control, more domination, more satanic shit being promoted. Um, and all this being said, I don't really have the interest in escaping from society and living alone in the woods somewhere. I just think it's important to be aware of it. I still aim to live in society. I would like to have a little bit of space, back up a little bit, a little outside of the city if possible. I don't want to live in the heart of a city anywhere. But that's just, I mean, that's something else. That's just personal preference. It's just that I don't think the solution needs to be escape from society and live off the grid, though that would be amazing. You could just tune it all out, turn all the shit off, don't pay attention to any media or anything that's going on in society and live your own life, live peacefully, live with love and with joy and happiness as best as you can create. Have a family and, stay outside of it all. That's seems like a beautiful option to me. But that's not necessarily the only option. I think it's okay to stay. I feel okay staying part of society, exploring different parts of society, visiting different parts of the world, perhaps where society is a little bit tweaked and a little bit different, in some cases more than others. What's important to me is not escaping it, but just paying attention to what's right and what's wrong and trying to stay on the correct path. That's all I've got to say for today. Thank you for listening once again, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.